This episode is brought to you by NBA on Prime. The NBA on Prime is back with an exciting week of Emirates NBA Cup action. The knockout rounds begin with quarterfinal doubleheaders on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Then it's a semifinal doubleheader on Saturday. And it all culminates with a championship game next Tuesday night, only on Prime. If you're not a Prime member, sign up for a 30-day free trial to get started today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
In Walmart's Newville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Newville, East, West, South, and North, could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart? Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. It's the Country Club Atmosphere, exclusively for Country Club tier subscribers at the Islanders Anxiety Patreon page. Thank you so much for your support and for your dough. And today, Mike, we are going to break our cardinal rule on this show for a reason. We are going to talk hockey and other sports as well, but mainly probably hockey. Word came out today via the New York Post that longtime hockey columnist for the Post, Larry Brooks, had passed away after a short battle with cancer. He was 75. And for people like you and me who grew up in the area, diehard hockey fans, Larry Brooks was required reading. It did not matter that he covered the Rangers. It did not matter that you were an Islanders fan or a Devils fan. You read Larry Brooks every Sunday. If you were me, you knew that the Slapshots column went up Saturday night. So you would kind of sneak in, go to the post.com and see if the article was already up. And maybe you saw something that made you mad. Maybe you saw something that made you think. Maybe you saw something that, you just enjoyed very much. But his presence will be missed. And we want to dedicate this episode to his memory, talk a lot about him and his influence on us, and talk about some other favorite sports writers we have. Again, you're like me. You read Brooks all the time. What were your thoughts when you woke up this morning and saw the sad news?
It felt like, sports is entertainment, and it's like a universe. You immerse yourself in a league. It's a universe not too dissimilar to a TV show or the comic book franchises that you love, and there are just characters that kind of end up outweighing like their actual like place in the cast, so to speak. Sports writers don't go out on the ice and score the biggest goal of the game, but they're a part of it, and they're just a part of the fabric of the universe. And so when you lose one that's just been there forever, I mean, my entire life, it's and as you said, like just a guy that you read one way or another. It's kind of like just a shock to the system, because not to get too like industry on everyone, but like there, the way that sports media is going, there was never ever going to be like another Larry Brooks, just like there was never going to be, another Woj when he left, or whoever, pick your favorite sports writer because of the way the industry is going. And so like it's just part of the whole kind of experience is now gone. And it's quite sad, because even as Islander fans, Larry is was such a huge presence in this hockey community. So it's a real tough loss.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they don't make them like Larry Brooks anymore. Like they really don't. That's the easiest way to put it. And they don't make them like Stan Fischler anymore. And I want to talk about Stan later on. These types of writers with these types of voices just don't exist. And there's a ton of sports writers out there, a ton of bloggers. A lot of people have, gotten into sports writing over this, last 25 odd years or so as the blog boom has happened. But man, nobody can bring it like a true blue newspaperman. And that's what Larry Brooks was. And I was listening to Greg Wyshynski and on Jeff Merrick's show today, and Wish brought up a great point. He said that he wrote for print. He wrote for a newspaper. And even though you could read the column online, like you could read everything online, you knew it was written in a way that was supposed to be, read on a subway or standing at a newsstand, or, waiting on in an OTB or something. Like that's the way those columns were written. And that's the way they were supposed to be taken in. And it just, that voice was just, one of a kind, especially for this area. And, the other thing too, and again, another thing that Wyshynski said, and I think you and I both feel this way, being a hockey fan who's in New York and a person whose most favorite sport is hockey is a tough beat. Like it's not easy to find content anywhere and find out more about your favorite teams. And in that environment, Larry Brooks was a star. Like he was the guy who you knew was going to pay attention to the league, and he was going to write about the league, and mainly the Rangers, but also the Islanders and Devils occasionally too, and obviously the rest of the league. And he was going to give it the focus that other teams got all the time. But like, we got Larry Brooks once a week and everybody else got, these kinds of columns and this kind of attention all the time. And so for hockey fans, that was what we had. Now, we had columnists writing about the Islanders for Newsday. I remember Mark Herman was one. John Jeansome was another one. Joe Gergen was a guy I read growing up all the time. Neil Best is still there. It's very strange to me that Neil Best is still writing about the Islanders. I feel like I was reading him when I was 8 years old. Maybe we'll get him on the show one of these days. But losing a person like Larry Brooks is tough, because again, they don't replace these guys. These guys have voices that we will never hear again. And I'm actually kind of heartened to see a lot of Islanders fans accept that. Like I was afraid there was going to be a lot more. He wrote about the Rangers. He loved the Rangers. He hated the Islanders. My thing with Larry Brooks was, yes, he covered the Rangers, obviously. But two things. One, he was as harsh on the Rangers as anybody. Like if the Rangers sucked or were going through a slump or had made a mistake, let me tell you, the knives were out, and Larry had one in each hand, and he was ready to use it. He was not afraid, which is why he got yelled at by guys like Dan Boyle and John Tortorella, who were employed by the Rangers when they were talking to Larry. We'll get to those in a minute. But the other thing was, if you read Larry's work, you could see that this man had an incredible love and dedication and appreciation for the Dynasty Islanders. Before he was back at the Post, but he was the PR man for the Devils. And before he was the PR man for the Devils, he covered the Islanders as a writer for the Post and I think some other outlets too. And so he got to know those guys in a way at a time when you could hang out with them, grab a beer, grab a dinner, grab whatever. And like, he got friendly with those guys in a way that most people aren't with, their players that they cover now. And he has said repeatedly that was the best team he had ever seen as a fan or as a writer, the best team he would ever cover. They meant a lot to him. What he hated was what the Islanders became and the guys that he felt were kind of responsible for that. I don't remember anything he ever wrote about Mike Milbury, but I'm sure if he did, it wasn't particularly complimentary. We know he did not particularly care for Garth Snow and Charles Wong, mainly because A, the team stunk, and B, they did have that, smartest guy in the room attitude that they carried with them everywhere, which, again, I don't blame him for that, rubbing him the wrong way. But once Lou Lamoriello came on board, all of a sudden the Islanders coverage got a lot nicer because he knew Lou. He worked under Lou when Lou was running the Devils and Larry was still there as the PR guy, and then he eventually left and went back to the Post. So, this was a guy, as much as Islanders fans love to kind of hate Larry Brooks, I've always appreciated that he appreciated this team at its best. And he always held that team in very high regard. And so I always had time for him. But my favorite columns of his are when he did, in fact, trash the Rangers for whatever stupid thing and stupid signing and stupid season they had. That was always a lot of fun, much in the way that I listen to Kipper and Bourne now when the Leafs suck, because it's too much fun. Right. They really care. But yeah, that'll be the way that's my big takeaway from Larry Brooks is like, he really, really appreciated and loved that dynasty team in a way that I don't think most people, most sports writers in particular, ever really said or articulated.
Yeah, he was there and kind of like around and immersed in that world. So, saw it firsthand. So I think and as someone who he grew up a Rangers fan and in the city, so he's probably seeing all the things that they were doing right that the Rangers weren't, and brought that forward with him. But I think what you said earlier too is kind of what it feels like, which is that he did write his articles felt like they were written for someone in like 1989 with one of those big cell phones with the antenna that you had to pull out and carrying a briefcase in the city. The newspaper's folded up and they're gonna read it when they get to their desk, and it's just like a bygone era. So that's part of what's so heavy about it, is that it's if you're of a certain vintage or you have an affinity for that kind of stuff, it feels like like another connection to that era has kind of gone away, and it's tough. And like Larry, I'm not gonna lie and say like Larry was one of my favorite sports writers ever. He just was always here, and he's like kind of just part of the experience of being a hockey fan in New York. But it was he was like one of a group of those like kind of old timey guys, and as you said it before, like Stan, and we say it all the time about guys like Butch and such. Like, sports have changed so much now that the people who cover it, people who broadcast, people who analyze, write about it, are so polished now that you lose so much of the personality that made sports what great, like that got you into sports was these vibrant, colorful personalities and stories and storytellers, and whether they were of like the Larry Brooks personality type with like a little like crotchety is maybe not the right word, but like ornery.
No, I think it kind of is.
Yeah, like or the goofball Jiggs McDonald types that are like straight out of a 1960s cartoon. They're just not, those kind of personalities are just not going to come around anymore, because they're not going to even get through the door. Like it's going to be tough for the next Jiggs McDonald to show up, because they're the big networks and the rights holders are going to be like, why is this goofball sending us his tape? Like it's
well, and the teams aren't going to put up with it. Like if you're a blogger, the team can be like, no, we're not giving you a press pass. Like it's just, they're just not, because they don't have to. Right. And I mean, if you're writing for a team, for an outlet, it's pays to kind of be nice to them, because then you get access and you can, get the interviews that you need and stuff like that. And so it's a bygone era of guys who would just tear you a new one if they felt that it was warranted. And, listen, we're just as much a part of this as anything. Like, we have a podcast, we've written for blogs. We could say pretty much whatever we want about the Islanders. And I mean, we've said that they've played like assholes for 5 years now. But we don't have to face the team in the locker room the next day. Like, we don't have to, I'm not standing next to Anders Lee after saying he played like an asshole the night before. Like, that's a good thing for us. Because I don't want to, make him mad or anything. But guys like Brooks and guys like Stan Fischler had to just write. They wrote their columns. They said what they said. And then the next day, there they are with a pen and paper. And again, if Dan Boyle is in a bad mood because it's clean out day, or if John Tortorella doesn't like the question you ask him, he's going to tell you to get the fuck out of there, you know? So that's another thing too, that I don't know how much of that exists. Wyshynski said that's happened to him before. I believe him. He might be, one of the last few that hears that sort of thing. But like, could you imagine Austin Matthews telling Luke Fox Jukebox to get the fuck out of here? Like, I can't ever picture that.
Well,
Luke would cry.
Yeah, he does. He does it in a subtle way where he's like, right. You got 2 more weeks to ask this question, and I don't want to hear it.
I guess that's sort of
But no, he and those guys. The other part of that is like those guys, the Luke Fox Jukebox types are, they don't see themselves as like the receiving end of the criticism and like the curmudgeonry from the players, whereas like Larry and Stan and those kind of old timers, they just would stand in there and in a phone booth with them and go back and forth, and it's definitely a lost art, the art of both giving and receiving constructive criticism, and then like just waking up the next day and respecting the other person for offering it, and not taking it personally. And I just don't think that the jukeboxian types are built to do it. So it's tough. And I think that it's obviously just not just hockey, but just sports in general. Like it's so plastic and sanitized and predictable now that when you lose one of the kind of last bastions of the bygone era, it's tough. So it's a rough one, I think, just for everyone in general, and I think pretty sudden. And when you think about Larry Brooks, like you can hear cars honking in New York, right? Like it's just that's what it is. So that's something to that he I'm sure was, and his family should be proud of, that he's kind of just part of the zeitgeist there. And I'll tell you what, like it's Ranger. I'm sure Ranger fans are devastated about it, because it's just like it was like having a person riding shotgun with you the whole time.
Right.
So it's just weird. It's just going to be weird for a little while.
Yes, well said. So our condolences to Larry's family and friends, of which there were many. Like I said, we wanted to pay tribute to him and give him the proper due. Larry is in the Hockey Hall of Fame and is a Elmer Ferguson Award winner, which goes to the people who go into the Hall of Fame. And while I'm here to pay tribute to Larry Brooks, I would like to point out that there's one guy who is not in the Hall of Fame, and I'm sure Larry Brooks, I wonder if he's written about this. I should probably go look it up. But one person who's not in the Hall of Fame and does not have an Elmer Ferguson Award is my favorite hockey writer of all time, and it is Stan Fischler, who is 93 right now and currently living in Israel. And he is not in the Hall of Fame, I'm sure, for many reasons like we just discussed. I can imagine that there are probably more than one person on that selection committee that Stan said something mean about probably 40 years ago, and they're probably holding on to it in a grudge that will never go away. And it's a shame, because Stan, like Larry, but even before Larry, 30 years before Larry, is an original, is a New York original. They don't make people like this anymore. And if you only know Stan from the columns he writes for the Islanders website, or maybe his Twitter account, which is still very vibrant, I urge you to somehow go back and read, if you can, some of his columns that he wrote for the Hockey News back in the 60s, or for various outlets in the 70s before he got into TV. This was a man who pulled no punches, and he would tear you a new one if he felt you earned it. He would make up nicknames for people. He would, be maybe a little crass sometimes, but he had a voice that you could not find anywhere else. I mean, this is, again, if you think there are no writers out there like Larry Brooks, who has been writing obviously in modern times, imagine when there was 6 or even 12 NHL teams. There was nobody writing anything like Stan Fischler was writing. And he was kind of merciless when it came to teams that he didn't feel were up to snuff, or players that he didn't feel were doing enough to earn their paychecks, and he would let him have it. And it was pretty nuts. When I was an intern for him, I used to go through some of these old hockey news articles and be like, damn, you really were angry at, Real Cloutier of the Quebec Nordiques in like 1973 or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, I was like blown away. Because Stan was like, to me, he was a very comforting presence on TV, on Sports Channel for the Islanders. Obviously, he was my boss at the time. He was super nice. He couldn't have been, more supportive of me. And I was like, geez, like this kind of stuff is kind of crazy. But that was what he was, and it's made him a legend. He's still, writing at 93 about hockey is still very legendary. But I do wonder if that's what's kind of kept him out of the Hall of Fame, and if it is, then it's a shame, because I'm not trying to be morbid here, but there is going to be a time when Stan is not with us, and at that point it will be too late for him to. He's in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. He's in the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. He's in every Hall of Fame you could be in, except for the Hockey Hall of Fame, which makes no sense. Like, I just don't get it. And it should be done soon, because again, the man will not be here forever. None of us are. But as much as I was sad about Larry Brooks, it did make me think of Stan, obviously, as sort of another venerable hockey writer, and it made me sad again that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's just not right. It's just right. That's all it is. It's a decision that anytime it comes up, the person that's bringing it up is doing it because it's the wrong decision. Like, nobody's like, oh God, hope the Hockey Hall of Fame keeps Stan Fischler out. Everyone's it's always the opposite. It's just not right, and it would mean the world. We know it would mean the world to Stan, and
sure.
and when they do eventually let him in, if they do it too late, like, there's going to be regret there that they didn't do it in time, and so it's just not right. And like Larry and Butch and Jiggs and Stan is like the poster child to us. We talk about him all the time as what it's all supposed to be about, which is right. Just none of it makes sense. None of Stan doesn't make sense in 2025. When I interned for Stan in 2012, he didn't make sense. He was rollerblade. He was like an 80-year-old dude rollerblading around New York City and on his bike. And he just would, leave the office that he was in. And, he'd leave me in there for a couple hours to do some work. And I'd be like, where are you going? And he's just like, I'm going to skate down to, and he'd name a place that was like 32 blocks away. And he would just go skate, or he'd go ride his bike to Cosby's by Madison Square Garden, and Stan lived in Spanish Harlem. So like it was just, he is, and I should say, an absolute character, and sports is supposed to be character driven, and that's why guys like Wade Dublowitz are so we're so enamored with guys like that, because Wade Dublowitz doesn't make sense. He's
right.
My height, has the same haircut as me, and has like a high pitched voice, and played the best goaltending hot stretch you'll ever see, and got the Islanders to a playoff, even like basically on his own. And that's what it's all about. It's about guys like that you can follow and fall for. And it's completely different when you're rooting for somebody like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, who has essentially been trained for this since they were 9 years old, and they don't say anything. They don't even look like they're enjoying playing professional hockey half the time. And that's not what it's supposed to be about. So and I think you remember that movie 61. Yeah, like for me, that's what it's all supposed to look like and sound like, and it's just supposed to be that like sepia toned sports. Like, that's what sports is supposed to look like. It's supposed to sound like, and the accents are supposed to sound like that. And the players are supposed to be these absolute nuts, and they aren't perfect, and they don't need to be held to the crazy perfect standard that we want. And unfortunately, it's just not how it is these days. And it's tough when a piece of it goes away, or a piece of it isn't treasured as much as it should be. Like Stan, you and I will be at the Pat LaFontaine game in a month's time, and I'm hoping Stan's there. Like, I feel like that's like the type of game that he usually comes back into the States like once or twice a year, and I feel like he might be there for that game, and I really hope he is. But like, I want him to be around the team again soon, because he's just a part of it. He's part of this, just like Larry was.
Sure. Definitely. I would also be remiss if I did not mention Stan's wife, Shirley, who passed away many years ago, who was around when I was an intern of his and is a pioneering figure in the world of sports writers amongst women. She was the first woman in the locker room, I believe, covering the Rangers at one point, and it was a real struggle and a battle. And she wrote many books herself and had to fight up against a ton of bullshit, frankly, just to do a job that she felt very passionately about. She was just as knowledgeable and a fan of hockey as anybody. And it took her a long time to finally reach the station where she could do that. And also, by the way, having two kids along the way. And Stan was always supportive and everything of her. And yeah, she had to fight tooth and nail to do a job that she was as qualified for as anybody. And she should not be forgotten either, in her efforts and her work and stuff. And so Stan would be the first person to tell you that too.
Deck your home with Blinds.com. La 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 la. La 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 Blinds.com. DIY or let us install. La 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 la. La 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 Blinds.com. Free design consultation. Free. Plus free samples and free shipping. Free.
Head to Blinds.com now for up to 50% off site-wide plus a free professional measure.
Blinds.com.
Rules and restrictions may apply.
And it's just, again, like these are two, really three, if you include Shirley, like New York institutions. They're people that are part of what we do here. And like they have informed us as fans, as New York fans as well. And, there's other columnists, I'm sure, if you're a big baseball fan or a Mets or a football fan, there's people that you read all the time and they make you a Knicks fan that'll make you feel a certain way about, how they write. That's how these guys felt to us as hockey fans and as hockey writers. Now, that being said, there's a lot of other people too. And for all the attention, sometimes mostly negative, that we give Canadian sports writers, I would also be remiss if I did not mention a couple of Canadian sports writers who also, had a big influence on me. And one of them is a guy who I am still blown away that he and I had a couple of interactions in our Twitter DMs. And that's Bob McKenzie, who recently retired last year. Because of his retirement, I will definitely not be watching TSN's Trade Center or Free Agent Frenzy ever again. Because if Bob's not there, I don't want to be there either. These guys can go do whatever they want to do. I don't care. But when I was growing up and I was reading the hockey news, particularly in college, which is how I ended up getting the internship at Stan Fischler, Bob McKenzie's column was the first thing I always read. He was actually the editor at the time of the hockey news, and his byline was all over the place. His sort of tone was all over the place. I remember him being on TV in the early days of the internet, when you could like watch clips and stuff from TSN. And to me, he is the go-to hockey voice. No offense to anybody who's doing the job now, but when I think of hockey reporters, the first voice I hear is that sort of scratchy voice of Bob McKenzie. I've read his books. Again, I've read a ton of his articles. He reached out to me during the Tavares free agency encyclopedia era, because I had written something that he not that he had a problem with it, but it's just the kind of way I phrased it was a little bit weird. So we talked it over, and he was very, very nice and very, very supportive of me. And when he retired, I sent him another DM. I hadn't DM'd him in years. I DM'd him again, and I said, Bob, I just want to wish you a happy retirement. Thank you for everything. It's been a pleasure reading you, or something along those lines. And eventually he did write me back. I'm sure he got a million messages like that. And he was like, oh, thank you very much. That's very sweet of you. So that's it. That's probably where my relationship with Bob McKenzie ends. But if that's it, I'm happy with it, because this guy to me is the number one hockey reporter of all time. Just as trustworthy as you'll ever find. Never, took it. It's funny because as much as I enjoy the clause coming out for guys like Brooks and Stan, I appreciate Bob McKenzie always kind of playing it straight down the middle and never having the clause out. So that's kind of, I think there's two ways to enjoy it there. But, to me, again, seeing him on NBC SN those early years, it just felt right. You go, oh shit, Bob's on. You got to listen to what he's going to say. And he had his podcast, the Bobcast, for a while, which I was required listening. And so I will miss his voice. I hope he enjoys many margaritas in retirement on whatever island he's going to. His sons are both involved in hockey now, so that's great. He's earned his retirement, but I will miss him terribly, because his stuff was just awesome. I just loved it for years and years and years.
Yeah. I basically just co-sign all that. It was that was the best part of watching Trade Center and Free Agent Frenzy was like just sitting there like agitated, like, all right, move on. I don't
Right.
need to hear from this Joker anymore. Just like go to Bob.
Right.
I see Bob typing something. I want to know what Bob's got to say. And
because that was the real info. That was
yeah,
the good
exactly.
stuff. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's so funny that like these guys now they would never admit it, but they're basically trying to just be Bob McKenzie.
Right. Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
you can't do it. And I think that's the same with like, a lot of like these hot take artists who there's a lot of people who tried to imitate Stan's shtick and Larry's shtick. And of course, Mike Francesa's shtick.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it just comes off as cringy and, like annoying more than anything. And it's I just remember one thing about Stan that cracked me up was when Tavares left. He like sent out a couple of tweets like, "Hey John, like you said this was like the toughest decision ever. I just am wondering if it was such a tough decision, why couldn't you have, whatever, let the Islanders know that you were still deciding rather than lead them on?" And he's like, and then he like sent out another tweet right under it on a thread was like, "Just wondering, pal." And of course, there's the Iggy Piggy thing, and so that's just not going to happen ever again. And so you got to cherish those kind of guys as Bob and Stan, etc. I mean, even someone like I feel like Greg Wyshynski is a very much a he's like he tries to take a little bit from each one of those guys and like conglomerate them into one writer, talking head, or whatever you'd consider him now. And I think it kind of sometimes it works and sometimes it comes off like you're trying way too hard to be this person. And just like Jeff Marek, sometimes I'm like, you're trying way too hard to be Bob Cole or whoever you're trying to be right now. Ron McClain.
Yeah.
Like it's just, do your own thing. And so it's tough. It's obviously a loss for the entire kind of just sporting ecosystem here. And it's sad to say, but it's only going to keep going in the other direction, right? Like there's no going back. So it's tough. And I think that's probably why, and not to make this sound like I'm a rose jaded podcast, but I think it's why like my consumption of sports media over the past 10 years, I would say, is just cratered.
Oh, yeah.
When you losing Francesa every day, and then you lose, or I know Mike still does his podcast, but like that 5-hour show, and then Stan taking a step back, Bob McKenzie, Larry, and etc. Like it's just it's why I think I picked up so many other kind of interests around like I can name a bunch of cricket writers that I love reading now and stuff like that. But here it's a little different. So
and what's funny is like. And this gets back to the sort of McKenzie thing. You're 100% right. I'm with you. Like, mine is crazy. I mean, honestly, outside of Arthur Staple, when he was still writing at The Athletic, there was really nobody else that I would read every single day, because there wasn't just the voices weren't there. I mean, obviously, there were the blogs. I guess the last time was when SB Nation was sort of in its, fully armed and operational status, when you had every hockey blog and you were going to play that team that night. So you went to that blog after the game was over. If the Islanders won, you went there and saw how salty everybody was. That was about it. But it didn't feel the same because those guys, they were fans like us. Like we were just writing shit. They were writing shit. It's cool. Like it was but it was different than a sports writer with like a, kind of a silver pen writing cool stuff and wanting to know what that person thought. Here it was just sort of like fan reaction. And again, we were just as fans that they were. It's different than when a Stan Fischler or Bob McKenzie or Larry Brooks writes it. When I, again, first started working with Stan, this was the early days of the internet. And I did not really have the internet at home yet. And so I would log in to work with him, and he wanted to read clips from other writers from across the hockey world. And this was when I learned about, I think it was called Slam Sports at the time. And I don't know how it ended up, but it basically had all of the Canadian newspapers on it. And so you would read the Calgary Herald or the Edmonton Journal or the Vancouver Province, and you would pull the columns from people like, remember George Johnson of the Calgary Herald? I think it was Calgary Herald. And Robin Brownlee of, what the heck was his name? Terry Terry something, I forget what his name was, who wrote for Edmonton. Yeah, this is terrible. And Tony Gallagher, who wrote for the Vancouver Province at the time. And like, this was like mind boggling to me. This is the exact opposite of like paring down voices. This was like having my mind expanded to other people that weren't Larry Brooks or Stan Fischler or, you know, the columnists at Newsday. This was like, oh my God, these guys are really, this is like something, this is how you learn about what's going on with the Calgary Flames, with the Vancouver Canucks. Like, I didn't know, like you would read the hockey news and there would be like a, you know, a blurb in there or a quick, you know, every team got a page or something, but it wasn't quite the same as like, you know, reading about what somebody did in a, you know, 3-2 loss to Winnipeg the night before or something like that. That's when you get the real stuff, not a week later in the hockey news. And so that, to me, I could still picture myself at Stan's office in this shitty computer. I think he had a 28.8 modem or something like that. And you had to dial in and do the whole thing. Like, don't use the fax machine. We're using the internet right now. And that was the first thing I did, was log in. I couldn't wait to get to the office to log in because I wanted to read what was going on. And it added so much context to the scores. You could read a score, but like to read the local columnist go in on something that happened the night before. So not even if it's bad, it could be good too. And just to kind of read about, wow, this guy Trevor Linden is really coming back, you know, in full force now. He's having another great year. So it was that sort of thing. And I really miss those days. You know, again, that I didn't have that feeling again until the blog era, when everybody, you know, there was so many great people writing so much great stuff, and it just made you laugh and smile. And I still love like Broad Street Hockey and Winging It Motown and all these other great blogs that were like, these guys are on my level. They're funny. They're entertaining. I'm learning something here, which of course was taken away from us because some bean counter thought that it made a lot more sense to get rid of everybody. So what are you going to do? But I guess it is, again, time changes. But anybody else, while we're still on hockey, we'll get to some non-hockey ones in a few minutes. But any other hockey columnists that kind of stick out to you? I haven't read those guys in years, but I just remember being so into what they were writing at the time that it was like, oh my God, this is like, again, I was like having my mind expanded.
Not really, yeah, no, I think that's really it. I mean, even like a couple years ago with when the 32 Thoughts is, I think, become something different now, but like his Elliot's old 32 Thoughts or 30 Thoughts were always kind of good because they were to the point and less, I don't know, self-congratulatory almost. I don't know how to put it, but yeah, so it's tough to think of another one. I think we kind of covered the ones that were, for me at least, required reading. I always loved Dom's stuff at, obviously, Lighthouse Hockey. I thought he had some like Fischler in him, which was great. And even something as simple as writing a recap of the Islanders losing to the Senators on like a random February night always had some color to it. It wasn't just like these guys can't execute a 1-2-2 trap or something. It was the big picture was always in mind. So I always loved that about the stuff that he did. And so like in terms of hockey, I think we kind of touched on them all. As a, you know, I was a Newsday guy growing up, so Greg Logan and Art and those guys I would read all the time too. But and then in like other sports, it was I don't know, it was a little different because I felt like I got so much of my baseball when I was a huge Yankee fan growing up. I got so much of my baseball juice from Mike and the Mad Dog.
Yeah.
And so like it was like almost as much, not as much reading as it was with just like listening to Mike and Russo every day. And then I mean, I've got plenty of folks that I love, like reading overseas, and like I said, in other sports, like I become friends with like Peter Lawler, who I think is such a good cricket writer, and his and then like soccer writers, like I love reading Max Rushton and listening to his stuff, Barry Glendenning in The Guardian, but of none of them even like Peter Lawler, to me, the reason I like him so much is he reminds me of Stan, but like I still just think nobody comes close to being as unique as Stan. Like just a true one of one, skating around New York City. Like it's and I feel like every time I read something from, whether it be about hockey or another sport or something like something current events wise. I'm like, I kind of just wish Stan Fischler wrote this, like it's really, it's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Mike and the Mad Dog count, even though they don't really write anything. But yeah, I mean, again, New York legends. I mean, if you grew up in this area around that time, they didn't really talk hockey all that much, but for every other sport, they were, definitely required listening. And I've said it before, I stopped listening to them when the Mets and Yankees both qualified for the 2000 World Series, because I was like, this is going to be insufferable. And never went back, probably for the right reasons. But it was it's never not entertaining. And again, those guys, not to be morbid, but like there's going to be a time when those guys aren't with us anymore. Hopefully it's a long time from now, but there is going to be a time when they're not with us anymore. And I hope that their legacy lives on, and people can still tell stories about listening to Mike and the Mad Dog. If you ever had to drive anywhere for work or to school or whatever, and you didn't have Mike and the Mad Dog on, I don't know what to tell you. You missed out on a lot, because it was great. Another guy I want to say who's writing I appreciated. I'm not a big basketball guy anymore. We did do a Knicks episode of Country Club Atmosphere a few months ago, but I always enjoyed David Aldrich's writing. He's a guy who was a writer back in the ESPN Page 2 era. I don't know if anybody else remembers this. It was the yellow website. They had like Hunter S. Thompson was writing for them and stuff. And he was also at the Athletic when they first opened, and was a smart guy. He was on TV all the time too. And I always found him a very smart and astute observer of the NBA. A lot different than most NBA writers. And just he kind of spoke to the general fan, when it kind of explained how things worked. And I always enjoyed his work. So David Aldrich, I haven't read it in years. I've kind of fallen off the NBA bandwagon a long time ago. But I did always appreciate his writing and his work. So he is still doing it, but I wish I was still reading it, I guess.
Yeah, and I worked. I mean, I've become friends with Chad Millman and worked with him for a long time, and he was at Page 2, and
wow.
Yeah, so we'd always talk to him about it, and just be like, yeah, I used to just like cold email Bill Simmons all the time, and be like, hey, like I'm 14, but I want to work for you, like just at Page 2 and write about the Islanders. And I was like, it's weird that he never got back to me, right? Like, I busted his chops about that, but
that's pretty funny.
And he's like, well, did you ever email me? I was like, no, I didn't care. I didn't read your stuff.
That's pretty funny. Listen, I have not listened to or read. I mean, Bill Simmons is the head of a entire media empire that I can honestly say I have never taken in. Grantland I read, but that was about it. And mainly it was just Katie Baker stuff at Grantland, because she was like, the main hockey person there. She's great too, by the way. I wish she wrote more. Bill Simmons was pretty good at the beginning. He was a lot of fun to read. There's a reason why he had a lot of fans and was able to build up a lot of cachet to get to where he's at now. But don't ask me about what he's doing now, because I wouldn't know. But he at first, when he was just sports guy, was actually pretty cool. I mean, it's a joke now, but like, you never read a sports column that referenced the Karate Kid, Beverly Hills 90210, like it, in the 2003, this was cutting edge stuff. Like, what the hell? Like, Stan Fischler's not going to talk about Beverly Hills 90210, so that was kind of fun. But anyway, so we hope you have enjoyed this discussion about our favorite sports writers. Again, our condolences to the friends and family of Larry Brooks. His voice will be missed. And if you haven't read the article at the Post by another great sports writer, Mike Vaccaro, a fellow St. John's alum, well, I want to get him on this show too one of these days. Definitely take the time and read it, because it is a very loving tribute to a guy who obviously knew Larry a long time. So check it out. Any final thoughts before we close up this episode of the Country Club?
No, you said it right. Just condolences and a lament that it's just it'll never be like that anymore.
Unfortunately. But we will be back with another episode of Country Club Atmosphere next month. Thank you again for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.